The following interview is the last recorded conversation I have with my late friend and former Scientology whistleblower, Doug Kramer. It was recorded in November 2023. Doug passed away in December of the same year. It is painful to look back at this video, how blissfully unaware I was that this would be our last conversation. I remember Doug as brave, kind, and honest, though he'd be the first to tell you that he could be an a-hole on a bad day. Please enjoy this video. Thank you. You got promise. You've said it now. You said it off camera, but don't laugh at me.
Well, I won't, I promise. Take your time, and if you fuck it up, you can do multiple takes because we're not live or whatever. And action. No, just kidding.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, my name is Kelly Copter, and today we are joined by friend, actor, ex-Scientologist, and fellow YouTuber, Doug Kramer from the channel Dazed But Not Confused. Hello, Doug. How are you?
Hello, Kelly. Thanks for having me on, my friend. Looking forward to this.
Oh, I'm glad. It's always so good to talk to you. You are a good friend, and I really want to get into it today with you about kind of Scientology's obsession with Hollywood, and how they actually rope in new aspiring artists and actors, into this cult. For anyone that might not know who you are, do you think you could give a little just sort of backstory on kind of how you got involved with Scientology and how that kind of relates to this whole Hollywood sphere?
Sure, I've had to tell it so many times, Kelly. I can probably give like a 3-minute rendition. So my pops got into it when I was between 8 and 10. So I say 9 years old. And he simply had trouble communicating with the family. And he went down to work, my dad, one day, and he literally came back like with completely different. And I'll explain it in a minute. But when he went down to work in the morning, it was around 8 or 9 a.m. and in the bottom of the newspaper or whatever he was reading that day before he started work, it said Dianetics. There was an ad for Dianetics.
Sometimes life can be difficult and you feel like something's holding you back. When it appeared my football career was over, I was introduced to Dianetics. It restored my abilities and allowed me to finish with my 3 best years. To win in life, obviously, confidence and self-respect are necessary, but where do you find them? I recommend the book Dianetics.
And you know how they have certain buttons that are designed to pull you in. So it said, do you have problems communicating? Do you have problems with your family? Something along those lines. And that was his ruin, or his button, that really intrigued him. He didn't do work that day. He took off. And 10 minutes from where he worked was the Ventura Mission, right near where he worked, but he was down there all day and all night. And when he came back, he had a glazed, hypnotized look in his eyes. He told my mom he needs to borrow $10,000 from my brother, or else they might actually have to get a divorce. That's what it came to, because it was like my mom and me being hit by a freight train. What's this strange thing called Scientology you're talking about? He was already talking in some of the nomenclature. He had this look in his eye. And me and my mom couldn't understand what the hell was going on. So they argued for weeks. Finally, they were considering getting a divorce. I remember my mom coming upstairs and saying, I don't want to freak you out, Doug, but your dad's gotten into this thing called Scientology. I'm like, yeah, Mom, I heard. What the hell's, what is it? What's going on? Because they were arguing. I was upstairs. They were arguing all night for weeks on end. And she said, I don't know, but he wants to borrow a large sum of money. It's freaking me out, and we're considering getting a divorce. And I remember just bawling my eyes out. Finally, my dad says, look, this is so important to me. You don't even know what it is. And this is the classic line, isn't it, Kelly, with Scientology? Why don't you just go down and check it out for yourself? And my mom, thinking logically, said, yeah, it's not worth getting a divorce over. Why in the hell don't I do that? So they found her ruin. She took to it, I would say, mostly to keep the family together. But when they got her in the room, she took to it enough where she could see the value, quote unquote, that it had for my dad. So then flash forward maybe a couple years later, as my mom's getting indoctrinated, my dad's moving up the bridge. They would sit me down when I was really rebellious. And I had a lot of anger issues. So they would, I know it's such a surprise, right? So they would sit down. Go ahead, laugh. So they would sit down with me whenever I'd have a problem with a girlfriend. I would get in trouble at school, which wasn't too often, but I rebelled. And they would very kindly listen to me. And then at the very end, where I'd offload whatever my problems were, they'd say, son, we would like to offer to buy you a course for $50. We'll pay for it, for something to do in Scientology that we feel will really help you. Now, Kelly, I didn't know what it was, but I hated it right away. I felt like evil entered our house. This is how I describe it, through my dad. My dad's not evil, but he changed, and there was a creepy, evil vibe just being around my dad, man. And then my mom kind of got the virus, or whatever you want to call it, because when I look back at it now, I don't have that evil feeling that I've been surrounded with my whole life until I deprogrammed from Scientology. So it's really hard to describe, but there was a massive change that night when my dad came home. So every time they'd say, they would say at the very end, would you take a Scientology course? They'd literally just get the S word out, because this happened over and over and over again. And I kept falling for it. I would use 4-letter words. I would leave the house. I would drive off when I got older and had a car. This happened all the time. So finally, I took to it gradually they would say, do you want to be punished for a few weeks or a month? Or do you want to take a course for a week that we'll pay for? So eventually I gave in, not because I liked it, not because I was curious, but because I said, fuck it, man. I don't want to be in my room the whole time. So it was a gradual series of indoctrinations. I remember one moment in particular where I did this exercise called the book and bottle. Not to lose your audience on nomenclature, but it's on something at the time that was called TRs and objectives. It's kind of the very beginning of the bridge to total enslavement. It's a hypnotic way of falling into a trance. So day after day, hour after hour, week after week, telling my auditor, I hate this, get me out of here. I'm just constantly rebelling. I had a major, what they call win. I snapped into a hypnotic trance, and I remember that day very clearly. It was the first real win I ever had. And my auditor asked me what's happening, and I was at a loss for words. I'd never felt that way before. I felt what it is, Kelly. It's dissociation. And you have a floating feeling when you go into this trance-like state, doing this monotonous exercise day after day, hour after hour. And I was told by my auditor that this is a form of exteriorization. So they reform hypnotic phenomena I learned since leaving into wins such as exteriorization. So I said, I don't know what this is. I want more of it. I'm semi-hooked. I still don't totally like it. It was grueling to get these wins each time, but I was always looking for that high that I got as a kid. And I experienced that a lot throughout Scientology. So it was gradual. And then it was also being introduced to the ethics conditions. Oh, I don't have to have this scrambled life. I can logically, which I was really attracted to, logically, because you know how logical everything is in Scientology, right, Kelly? Or it seems that way. These initial tools for life, they seemed like they were beneficial. And bit by bit by bit, I took to it. And then I guess I really took to it when I was around 19 or 20. And that was when I had a problem with smoking weed. And long story short, I decided to give up the weed habit. And because I was getting high, I was having the same phenomena happen as being stoned in the auditing. So I found my spiritual home. I've never felt this way before. Clearly, L. Ron Hubbard has a technology that's unique. And if I can feel high without drugs, and all these tools that I'm learning and all these wins that I had without realizing what was happening to me, I'm in. So once I crossed that line, I dedicated myself from around 20, and I woke up around in my early to mid 30s. And that's another experience we can talk about later, perhaps. That's the brief story.
That explanation of, getting high without drugs, I actually have heard that in lots of other cults as well. They experience a similar kind of euphoria or high feeling that they keep going back for, that they want to have again. They called it exteriorization. You very rightly said dissociation, right? I don't know how long those sessions run for, but they are hours of repetition and, like you said, inducing trance. And it's I've heard your story on your channel as well, and it's interesting to me how you spoke about your dad. Like one day in, completely indoctrinated. You literally gave me chills when you said there was an evil in the house. But you leaving, you also in one day snapped right out of it, right after the Steve Hassan book was dropped off at your house, which, you know, we can get into that, like you said, in a bit. Well, I wanted to talk to you today about acting. And, you know, I think if anyone wants to learn more about Doug's story, please go to his channel and check it out, because he has got some amazing videos talking about his own story, about mind control, about controlled opposition. There's so much information there, and it's really, really good. Promo over. You can send me $20 later on.
I already paid you the advance, but you can edit that out.
So, you have wanted to be an actor since you can remember.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So, what is it that made you so determined as such a young kid to really follow this through and go into one of the most competitive and maybe toxic careers that is out there?
That's a great question. Nobody's actually asked that. I don't have an answer either. All I can remember, Kelly, I mean, I vaguely remember it because my parents would constantly remind me about this when I got older. But almost when I learned how to speak and string sentences together, however old that would be, what, 5, 4, 6, I don't know. And I don't remember it, but they said that I told them that I need to become an actor or I'm going to die. And I was very, very serious about it. I'm kind of a serious person when it comes to like doing something. I can't multitask, but I put everything into the one thing until it happens. So I don't know. That's why I always felt like my jury's out on spirituality and stuff. I mean, I have ideas and stuff, but there always felt like there was a continuity or something in my life. Even as a kid, I definitely felt different than my parents and my mates. You know, I had trouble kind of fitting in because I had my head in the clouds and I was always in my imagination. To me, that's where the real juice was. And I know you know, because you're an artist too, so I'm sure you can totally relate to that. But when you ask me where it comes from, I don't know. Who as a kid says that? And I was dead serious. You know, I wanted to move to Hollywood right away. Thank God my mom was not a stage mom, or else she would have encouraged it. And I think I probably would have had a career and I would have turned out like a lot of child stars on drugs and fucked up. Not that didn't happen anyways when I got into Scientology, but at least I didn't have stage parents.
I can relate to you on sort of being in your imagination, and I don't know what it was like before your folks got into Scientology, but I always found those sort of creative things were a place to escape to and to have some kind of, I guess, control over what happens to you in that moment. Like, you know, it's just somewhere where you're not in a position stuff's being done to you, where you can actually play and it's safe. You know, it's a safe space to feel emotions. You know, I loved singing. I know you are a musician too.
Nowhere
but
near
you know,
as good as you though. I can't sing for shit.
Guitar. I feel like it's guitar.
Guitar, yes. I can play the guitar, but I can't sing, especially not anywhere near you. And I've always been super jealous of people that can. It's just, I've never been.
Well, I can't play guitar, so.
Okay, fair enough.
I tried, but you know, when you press on the strings and it like indents into your finger, I'm just like, this is just too painful. I can't
do it for weeks though, Kelly. That goes away. Yeah, you know, that does eventually go away. I know what you're talking about.
When you're 5 years old, to know that you want to be an actor or you're going to die is quite a statement to make. When did you was it a movie you saw? Was there something that made you go, that is the life that I want? I'm just curious.
Yes, there was one specific moment, but you know, you said something that maybe this is why, you know, we were talking about the dissociation and therefore going into your imagination, right? Maybe it was just, when I look back at it now, maybe it was just subconsciously realizing that I hate to say this about my parents because I don't want to paint the wrong picture. They gave me a good life. You know, my dad just passed. I miss him. I didn't have contact with him. You know, me and my mom are a little bit in contact now, but I haven't had contact with them forever. So it's been a strange relationship, but they did the best they freaking could. They really believed in Scientology and they did help me. They were just shut down emotionally, man. And I think that what you just said Maybe it was so extreme because on a subconscious level, I knew that and I was trying to escape. Maybe that's what threw me into my imagination. And I hadn't seen too many. One of the shows that sticks out is a show called Silver Spoons. There was a guy named Ricky Schroeder who I kind of look like. So that was my first inclination of, and I also felt like I could do it. You know, playing guitar took forever. I didn't have natural talent. I mean, I got good at it, but my friends could bypass me quickly because they had the ear for it. They had the natural talent. I don't want to paint the wrong picture that my parents are bad because they gave me a good life. But you were talking about earlier how you were in your imagination too. And that just sprung to mind. Maybe I was just escaping my imagination because subconsciously, oh God, I hate to say this. I hate to use these words, but my parents might be sociopaths, meaning they don't have the kind of emotional content that I think I was absolutely thirsting for. And maybe that's why I said I need to become an actor or I'm literally going to die in this family. You know, I told you earlier, I couldn't really play the guitar. That took me a long time to get up to my friend's level. But for some reason, acting, entertaining, being a joker or whatever, entertaining my friends, that was something that came natural. So I saw this show called Silver Spoons where there was a blonde-haired kid that was about my age named Ricky Schroeder. And I remember asking my dad, do you think I can do that? I think I can do that. What do you think, Dad? And there was no interest from my dad. And my mom, I would badger about that too. And there was a little bit of interest, but she says, wait until, you get out of high school. And I was serious. I didn't want to do school. I didn't care. I really, really wanted to move to Hollywood. We were only an hour away. At least let me go on auditions, Mom. That's all I wanted to do. So you asked if there's a specific moment, though. I was around 12 years old, and I was in a Thousand Oaks, California movie theater. That's where I live, by the way, in California. And there was a movie called Stand By Me with a guy named River Phoenix, who I absolutely love to this day. Now, he also, this is kind of ironic, I didn't know it at the time, but he had grown up in a cult called the Children of God. They're super abusive. They passed him around in the cult, so he's sleeping with much older people, shall we say, beginning at the age of 4. So again, maybe on a subconscious level, I related to him, but I'd never seen acting that's that powerful. I don't know if you've seen that movie, Kelly, but he has some scenes where he really breaks down and it does not look like he's acting. And this is a young kid that's doing that. And that really fired it up because it was now like, how on earth does he do something like that where he knows it's not real and the audience knows it's not real? But I've just never seen something like that, especially as a kid. So that's when I really wanted to pursue it. And again, my parents, what they would always say is you need to finish school first and then you can do it. And then as I got more and more wrapped up into Scientology, this is when I actually got into Scientology when I got out of high school, because that dream faded away. I got into music and the guitar because I couldn't go anywhere with it. I didn't want to just do theater and shit. I really wanted to be a film actor. So since that was cock-blocked by my parents, so to speak, I just got into music. And then that involved smoking pot, cigarettes, kind of going down the bad kid route. And that helped to lead into me hitting a breaking point and taking to Scientology too.
I can imagine little Doug, rebellious Doug, running around, but with a dead set plan. Los Angeles has the highest population of Scientologists in the world. Coincidence?
Wow, you've done your homework. Yeah, I don't think most people actually know that. They think that it's Florida, I think. But I believe you're right. Los Angeles does have the highest population of Scientology. Coincidence? Of course not. Of course not. Because one thing happens really low. No, of course not. Because we know, Kelly, that Hubbard, specifically marketed Scientology to artists. I think that without Tom Cruise, John Travolta, and that celebrity angle, I'm not even sure they would exist today. They certainly wouldn't have they only have 30,000 members, give or take, including the staff members. So they wouldn't have the kind of spotlight that they have on it without the celebrity aspect. And Hubbard really, really tuned into that. And I think that's why they got as far as they have in a big way.
Yeah. And just think, anyone that's watching in the States, Scientology is currently regarded as a religion. Now, what religions do you know that have I don't know if it's a policy or a plan or a ploy or what, but they had a whole document, don't they, on Project Celebrity, which is all about getting people of influence to actually be the face of this group, which is just wild. And that's not something that I know any other religions to do. How about you?
No, no. I mean, I'm sure that there's definitely other religions. Like, wasn't Prince a Jehovah's Witness? And again, River Phoenix, and his whole family was from the Children of God, but not specifically with the number of celebrities that Scientology has. Also, you said religions; those would all be recognized as cults. The family of the Children of God and Jehovah's Witnesses and stuff. So no, I mean, no real religions are known for so much celebrity status.
To put it in like a sort of modern context as well, on YouTube all the time, people are, brand ambassadors and sponsored by this brand or that brand, and they're the face of it. They put themselves out there, the brand represents them, they represent the brand, sorry. And it kind of feels like Scientology wanted that of these people of influence, to bring others in. How do they put this into practice in sort of today's time? If I'm a young actor and I'm moving to Los Angeles, what might I expect from the Church of Scientology?
Great question. I'm not totally sure, Kelly, because I got out in January 2008, so I'm sure things have changed, but I know that they still recruit. And the way that they did it when I was around, and I'm sure it's the same thing. Just ask Steve Mango, they have seminars that they put on, and you get to meet a little B or C level celebrity. One of my friends at the time was Jason Doring, and he was on a hit show called Veronica Mars. So he'd be wheeled in to do a seminar, which would be either free or $20 or whatever. I think they were free. And 15 people, 20 people would come down. They'd sit in a room. They'd listen to Jason give a spiel. It would be like how to get an agent, how to get a casting director to see you. Total BS, come on phrases, where when they actually got there, Jason, for example, would just spew about how the comm chorus helped him and how if you learn how to communicate better, which we can do as a Scientologist, this is how I got jobs in the audition room. This is going to give you the confidence. And after he'd give his 20-minute spiel, then his Sea Org member, but not necessarily dressed as a Sea Org member because they don't want to intimidate the people that are there, would come in and then sell them the chorus and say, hey, this is what Jason's talking about. This is what you need to do. It's only $50. Who wants to sign up? And since it's a numbers game, out of the 15, I would see 1, 2, maybe 3 people actually start the choruses. And it's really, really simple. You bring them in a bait and switch way, which is what Scientology is all about on every level. And it's no different with the celebrities like I just described. That's one way. They also do it online now, from what I hear. They bait people to come in to the church or, to get them down there online because everything is the internet nowadays.
So by the time you actually join Scientology, you're what, 19, 20-ish, like officially. So you've already had almost 10 years of gradual indoctrination through your parents, your, what do we call it? Punishment alternative courses that you begrudgingly went and took. And you've had some wins or highs from this experience. You're still determined to be an actor. So what does Scientology have to offer you as a 19, 20-year-old trying to pursue an acting career?
I never would have had the confidence to move out to LA if I didn't realize that the religion that I happened to be involved in at the time included Tom Cruise, John Travolta. When I was going down to the mission, I would always see their magazines. They would have the celebrity magazines and everything around. And Tom Cruise and John Travolta were in all these. And I said, oh my God, maybe, I never would have. I think that what would have happened, Kelly, is I keep playing the guitar. The dream to be an actor faded away. It didn't come back into my mind. It actually came up during an auditing session where I literally had what they call I had a realization where I was like, and they call it a rekindled purpose, where it's like, oh my God, I always wanted to be an actor. And Tom Cruise and I happen to be in the perfect religion. Without that confidence, I would never have moved out to LA. So it's this weird double-edged sword where I don't regret the path, no matter how it turned out. It is what it is, and it looks different living it and then looking back. But at the time, I thought I'm in the greatest, when I took to it, I'm in the greatest religion. It gave me this pseudo confidence of feeling better than other people. I felt like I could communicate better than other people because of the training routines and all the training I did. I was only an hour away and I had a preset place to land at Celebrity Center. So it couldn't have possibly been any less intimidating. You know, when a lot of people move out to LA from overseas or from New York, even, it can be really intimidating. You have no friends or whatever. When I went to Celebrity Center, I met a celebrity, a little D-level celebrity named David O'Donnell, the first night I was there. It couldn't have been any more perfect in terms of having friends. I'm in the right religion. We know it's a cult, but I'm trying to give you the mindset of when I was, what I was actually thinking. I have the confidence, a place to land, a preset network of people. I'm meeting celebrities, and it's just like, it was, I hate to say this, and I'm not encouraging anybody to do this, but it was a hell of an advantageous group to be in when I was confronted with the nerves of, do I really have the balls to move out to LA and give this a shot? And like I said, it happened in an auditing session. I was a landscaper. I had a landscape company. I was making good money. I was purposeless, though. I was going to get married. I mean, everything was laid out. And in one session, and I remember babbling to my auditor, not only during that session for a couple hours, but all the other sessions. It was on a level called grade 4, where you're given a post-hypnotic suggestion that you're going to move out of fixed conditions that you have in your life into the ability to do new things. So with that suggestion, I took on board, I can do anything. And I did rekindle that purpose that I had as a kid. And I sold my shit, broke up with the girlfriend, and moved out within about a month or two of that realization.
Wow.
I went right to LA.
That's quite a big, that's a big change, you know, and it just speaks to how powerful those post-hypnotic suggestions are, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because, you know, what you said about your dad, he completely was taken by it immediately. You've been able to make, you know, all of those decisions. You just meant the girlfriend, the moving, all of that. Those are really big life changes, and most people take time to kind of get there. So the fact that you could be switched so quickly is, you know, a testament to how strong that stuff can be. Does this cult offer you some kind of mentoring? You know, I know they have the Celebrity Center, and it's kind of set up like that, isn't it? You know, celebrities walk among us, and you could be one of us one day as well. I know that preset is there, but like practically, what do they offer you?
That's another great question. I can only speak for myself because people have asked, hey, do they give you connections in this and that? For me, to some degree, yes. Again, you have the network, Kelly, at least to feel comfortable so you're not just some actor moving out from Iowa and you don't know anybody and have no connections. So like I said, I met David O'Donnell, or I said hi to him and he kind of brushed me off. But that was my first inclination where, wow, I could really be set up. Now, they didn't do anything in terms of getting me jobs. They did have casting directors that I eventually got hooked up with that were Scientologists. I signed with, you know, Carol Masterson, who was Danny Masterson's mother eventually, and that was a whole set of connections. So yes, they do offer some stuff in the way of like what you want to make of it, who you want to meet in Scientology. I went to Scientology acting schools in the way of Milton Casales and a guy named Robert F. Lyons. Those were the two main acting teachers that were prominent. And there were also Scientologists. And the whole time, I just felt very comfortable in this bubble world and very confident simply because of not what they were necessarily offering in the way of courses or whatever, but what you make of it. Who do you want to meet? We got acting teachers, you know, that you can meet other people with. And they were really good acting teachers too. And at that time, it may have changed a little bit, but I still think they have pull. It was really popular to be a Scientologist actor because it was a big thing in Hollywood. Nobody likes Scientologists, but we worked a lot. You know, that's the explanation for why. But there's still quite a few Scientologists like Giovanni Ribisi, you know.
And I speak of that, but this is just my perspective and my own outlook on it. That you know, it's a personal thing. It's something that works for me.
If my experience is anything to go by, if they think they want a career in Hollywood and they can just join a cult like Scientology and you're making a deal with the devil and everything's just going to take off. It wasn't like that for me. I still had to work my ass off, but there's no way in hell I would have A, moved out to have the confidence, and B, been so tenacious and persistent. Because as you said at the beginning, it's a really ridiculous kind of career to take a chance at because you're almost guaranteed to fail.
Yeah, it's a really rough environment, and there might be some actors watching now, and I hope there are, because this is who this video is for. And I wonder if not to get too nerdy about it, but there's different kind of styles of acting or methods of acting. You've got like Stanislavski, you've got Meisner or Uta Hagen were some of the ones we looked at. Did Scientology have a specific method? Did they have their own? Did they take from anything else?
Okay, so I studied with Bobby Lyons and Milton Casales. Now, that Milton Casales ran something called the Beverly Hills Playhouse, Kelly, and that was run just like a Scientology org. They had ethics officers, they had conditions. Milton actually got a little bit in trouble with Scientology for creating a book that he would give to students that were altered versions of L. Ron Hubbard actual policies. Yeah, so we ran and I'd say 50%, because this is a really prominent acting school that had everyone from Michelle Pfeiffer, a non-Scientologist, to, well, Jason Begay was in the class, and that he met Bodhi Elfman, and he was given a book. And so 50% were non-Scientologists because of the prominence of the place and Milton's reputation. And then the other 50% were Scientologists. So it's such a good question, though, because there wasn't really the method, Uta Hagen, or there was no specific style. But what I did like about it is I would say it's closest to method in the way of, how you don't want to re-stimulate the reactive mind, right, Kelly? They would encourage you in general, whether it was Milton or Bobby Lyons, to use your imagination, but it was really hardcore about being real in general, which is what I really liked. It wasn't about faking it, but it wasn't about pulling things like a method actor might from real life necessarily. You would try to imagine, but this is just a general idea. But that the scenes that I saw at these acting classes were it had some of the best actors. I hate to say that because it's kind of contradictory. I mean, I became better when I got out because I was actually realized how robotic I was, but there's something about the electricity of those environments, the people that were in there, and the non-style that allowed us to push the limits. A lot of amazing shit went down in those classes. So no, they don't promote the method. I would say they kind of poo-poo that in particular, because that would be using your real experiences, and you don't want to stir the bank, the reactive mind. But somehow most of the people were able to draw from the energy of seeing other people and to try to make it as real and as intense as possible. Does that answer your question?
And it does, yeah. I just ask because, the thing I've always heard is acting is reacting, which, I hear about the reactive mind and how terrible it is. So I wonder how it works in a Scientologist brain to be an actor. What does it mean? Are you playing pretend? Are you drawing something from a past life? Like, I don't know. I've not done that. So that's why I ask you.
You just bring up some interesting ideas, because I'm trying to think back. There really wasn't. So was I drawing from past lives? What was I? Like I said, there was no particular style. Normally, if you go to a certain class, you could take a class that just teaches Uta Hagen, that just teaches Stanislavski or whatever. I read all those books and I studied them, and we weren't not allowed to study those, but there was, even though it was the programmed Scientologist teacher and a lot of programmed Scientologists that you think would be antipathetic towards being real, there was something about the bizarreness, I think, of just being in a cult environment, which is unusual. And I'm telling you, there was a certain electricity in Milton's class and Bobby's class where we'd feed off of each other, and we would just use Scientology, basically. Like I'm thinking about Jason Doring, who I told you about earlier. One of the things that we were taught was how to pull attention, how to be interesting. If you're going to go on auditions and you want to be an actor, you increase your chance.
Be interesting.
I know. Well, you know the concept they have in Scientology, interested and interesting. Has that ever, does that ring a bell or anything?
No, please
And
enlighten
mate, this is the bizarre thing and why I was thinking twice about the question you asked, because some of the things we do go against the policy seemingly of Scientology. They have this thing that Elron talked about you need to listen. You don't want to be interesting. You want to be interested as part of the communication formula. It was in one of these communication courses or whatever. But the way I was taught by Bobby and Milton was that you want to be interesting. I guess you want to be a narcissist or whatever. But the point is like we weren't just stuck to LRH technology, even though, like I said, Milton gave us a book that was full of nothing but policies like that. But there was a certain rebelliousness and a freedom where we feel, I'm just speaking for myself. But it seemed like we didn't have to, we were even breaking out of Scientology's, well, Kelly, they promote freedom of mind. There's no limits, OT abilities, all these heady things played out in the acting class in way of not having any formula, but we felt like we were kind of better than everybody else. We had the calm formula. We could communicate. So, when we really look at people and we could react more. I'm telling you, there's some, I don't understand it, but there's something about, and like I said, I don't want to encourage people because I got better when I got out, a lot better. So it, in a weird way, it shut me down, but simultaneously the headiness of having such freedom, there was a lot of OTs in the class that created an environment where we could even ditch some of the Scientology concepts and quote, go there. I felt like I just rambled, but you're bringing back little memories of, that's right. Yeah, did we? What the hell was that like? Because it really wasn't, it wasn't like being at a Scientology celebrity center doing a course. It was a place to really be free while being the most unfree by being in a mind control cult. It's a bizarre combination.
I keep going back to it, but this industry is so difficult to be a part of. You have to have a really thick skin to kind of be a part of it. And there's a high percentage of artists out there that are narcissists. I know you cover it really widely on your channel, and I've got interested in it as well, listening to some of the interviews and things you've done discussing it. Do you think that Scientology can train somebody to be a narcissist?
Yes, I do. It's another great fucking question. I believe I was made into, you can't really be a narcissist, I don't think, Kelly, but you can be a secondary narcissist, or you can be made into one temporarily until you extract yourself from that narcissistic environment and maybe not be that. But yeah, when you just asked me that, I was narcissistic for sure. I was absolutely felt I was better than people. I also had this thing that wasn't Scientology related where I just knew I was going to make it. Like I knew it was my purpose. I never doubted it. It took me years and I never really got to totally make it because I woke up right when I was going to basically have a career. So I never doubted it. I really did need to do it. I was going to stay in it until, a lot of people move out and it's so hard they give up after a year. Or some people actually say, I'm going to give it a year. And if I don't become a series regular, I'm going to give up. You have to, some people make it right away, but for me, I was in it for the long haul. I also went from it being totally narcissistic to actually falling in love with acting, which is what helped me get out of Scientology simply by the art, even in Scientology schools, simply by the art of getting in touch with who I really am versus what I was programmed to be. So for a long period of time, it was a narcissistic endeavor. I absolutely think that Scientology can make you into a one-dimensional. Look at Tom Cruise, the focus he has. I would say he probably already was a narcissist. Maybe not. This is a total guess. But the Scientology tech definitely, I think, plays a part in his drive. And a lot of Scientologists that I knew, they weren't as hardcore as him, but they had that same intensity. And we felt we were better than people. And like I said, the only part of that isn't Scientology is I do feel it was my path or whatever. It's the one thing I did have a natural talent in, and I could grow forever on it. I could never master it. So it was something that always was keeping my interest, specifically when I fell in love with it in Scientology acting school, specifically with my teacher, Bobby Lyons, who, despite being the most programmed, OT8 Scientologist you can be, had such a love of acting and about really expressing who you really are, that was setting me up to subconsciously doubt and get out of Scientology before it actually happened.
Your acting class in particular, there's a sense of there's some community there. You know, there's your teacher who's a mentor to you. It sounds like things were quite difficult, you know, with your own parents, and this is an adult who's actually pushing you to your dreams and to the things that you want. So I can see how, you know, you can get completely sucked into all the rest of it that comes with it as well. Just on your point earlier about, you know, that you're not a narcissist, I don't think. From the limited things I've watched, I do not think you are one.
I don't think I
You're
am
so
either, but I
caring
do
and
feel like I
kind.
was. I do feel like I absolutely was.
But well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know you back then. But to be in the acting world, in you kind of need a couple of those traits, like having a bit too much confidence, a bit of unwavering determination in that way. You do kind of need a little bit of that to succeed, because you know, I could never go into acting because I could never deal with the audition process. You know, it's just so harsh. People are judging you. You know, everyone's kind of can be quite catty or whatever. I could never cope with it and was like, this life, not for me. Still enjoy getting to play, which is why I come to YouTube, because I can play here. But,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not acting, I'm just hanging out with people. It's great. But yeah, I think you need a little bit of those traits to actually get on screen and do something like that. So
Yeah.
even here, even on YouTube, you need to have a little bit of, I think I know what I'm talking about. I don't know if that's narcissism or if it's
Maybe
just self-confidence, but
I don't think everybody has to or is a narcissist that makes it or whatever. But that I definitely noticed there's a lot of them, and that those were the ones that seemed to succeed, and that talent would always take a back door. I naively believed, and it's all I really cared about it at a certain point, that if I'm talented enough, if this really is my purpose, if I get good enough, if I can go into the room and do an audition where it doesn't matter that I don't have any credits on my resume and I'm going up against people that have been on multiple series or movies and stuff, I felt there would come a day, because I went to class all the time. It was my addiction. And so I just wanted to get as good as I possibly can so that when I would go into the room, sooner or later, I'm going to give an audition where they're not going to be able to say no. So I don't think that it's totally like that though, but there was a certain amount of naivety that it took to hang in there for about 10 years to finally get my first break. Part of it being the narcissism, part of it being the confidence, and part of it believing that it was my purpose. And a part of the magical thinking of Scientology. If you really want it, then it's guaranteed to happen. There was definitely magical thinking involved in actually believing that I would make it too. And I didn't get my first real part till I was in my early 30s. And I was thinking, if I don't make it by the time I'm in my 20s, I'm doomed. Because I just had this idea that you have to get in there before your 30s, and nobody's going to hire you when you get older. So I was like feeling, it was scary, Kelly. Like I invested all of my eggs in this basket. I gave up the girlfriend, the landscape company, everything. And I freaking love this art form. And I was like, if I don't make it, I will fucking kill myself. So I was absolutely determined. And when I finally got my first break, it was like the most amazing day of my life, man. It was like, are you kidding me? I mean, oh my God, I finally, I got a big part, and I got 2 offers that day, where before, I was lucky to audition once every few months, and then it would only be for a few lines. But the day that it actually happened, I got a phone call from Carol Masterson, and she said, I had 2 auditions that day, and they were for big guest star roles, multiple episodes on like a nighttime soap opera show. And I auditioned for 2 of them that day. Those auditions alone were kind of out of my league. And I got offers on both of them in one fucking day, whereas for, like 10 years, I couldn't get a call back for doing a little 5-line and under part. So it was like, oh man, I need to bring back so many memories with this because it's been so long. But it's like, I don't know if it was I see it totally different now because I don't have the heart to go back into Hollywood, especially knowing with what I know now. And I like just doing the YouTube stuff for now, more anyways. It's more authentic. But I think that a lot of being blinded by Scientology, the overconfidence and the magical thinking is, and really actually wanting to do it. If Hollywood wasn't corrupt, Kelly, I fucking miss it. I would be there in a heartbeat. But since I kind of, I'm not a narcissist anymore, I can't do it, man. I don't have the heart. But it was lacking that heart, I think, that allowed me to at least have some taste of success and to stick it out. But that was just part one of my life. It's so strange the way everything worked out. I had such a different plan for my life, and I've always been analytical and driven. But when I got out of Scientology, I was never expecting that kind of experience, which I'm still trying to translate and transcribe today. My life is no longer this laid out computer program like it was when I was a Scientologist, and it's good and weird.
Yeah, no, that you said that beautifully and brilliantly. I want to say as well, I don't think you've ever been a narcissist, but I do think maybe Scientology can give you like fake invincibility.
Yeah.
Thinking like it can make you make it go right. You have cause over your surroundings and all of that jazz as well, and for the new young actor out there in LA going for a job, will Scientology A, make them famous, B, give a fuck about them if they don't become famous?
You asked some really, really good questions. Okay. It's a total opinion.
I love the
based on
sips
my
every
experience.
time.
You just I didn't expect all this stuff to come back, man. Let me just think about that for a second. This is just
Yeah,
my
you
personal
could.
experience. I cannot speak for all actors or Scientologists, and I didn't make it to be super famous. I woke up right when I was going to kind of really actually have a career, which maybe was a blessing in disguise. But here's my honest answer. I hate to say this because this is going to encourage people to like think that they can join Scientology, to make it. But there is something about the narcissism we talked about, the induced narcissism, Kelly, that might allow you to bulldozer through things that might be hard. The magical thinking, the pseudo confidence. You made a good point about make it go right. You're never a victim. If you want it, you can have it. It's like, Tony Robbins on steroids, right? So there's something to that, man. So if a young actor got involved in Scientology and they were made into a secondary narcissist, because I mean, you don't become a narcissist, I don't believe. You either are one or you aren't, and it's formed early on, but you can become narcissistic, which might help you have a career as a young actor in Hollywood. Yes, I hate to say this, but yes, if you join Scientology. At the same time, I would say you're selling your soul. I would say that the price isn't worth it, and you don't need that. How many non-Scientologist artists are there? Most of them are. So you don't need it. But if I just use my experience as an example, like I told you, I never would have had the balls to move out here. It was the magical thinking that allowed me to stick it out so long and believe I was better than everyone else. And I also did actually have some talent. It wasn't like the guitar where I had to work at it. This did come naturally. And even then it took a hell of a long time. So it's not a guaranteed foot in the door by joining a cult like Scientology. As long as you go under the spell and you're willing to do that, I don't know who would be willing to do that. I hate to say it. Yeah, I do think that it could help. That's such a bad answer, but that's the honest
No, that's
truth.
all right. I mean, no, that's fine. And you spoke quite honestly about, there's a price to pay for that.
Very big
These
price
big
to pay for it.
celebrities like Tom Cruise, John Travolta,
They paid a price.
what is the price they've paid? Are they in a chokehold by the bollocks from Scientology?
Good question.
Do they have the ability to leave? Will they ever leave? Can they?
Yeah, you got it. Exactly.
I guess would you say that was the price, that they're kind of, they give themselves to an organization who will therefore then dictate what you think, feel, act, and do?
Yes. You just said it perfectly. I couldn't have said that any better. That is the price. you know, who knows, right? I'm not John Travolta or Tom Cruise, but they are in a position where they're under a spell, for lack of a better phrase, and to extract themselves from it. See, here's the thing, like John Travolta, Kelly, attributes, just like my dad did and just like I did, everything good that happens in your life, as you know, is because of Scientology. And everything bad that happens is because of you and you didn't apply the tech correctly. So John Travolta inadvertently possibly caused his son's jet's death. We don't know if Kelly Preston was, if her death, untimely death, had to do with maybe not taking proper cancer medication. We don't know. What I'm saying is if that man came out of Scientology, his decompression and what he'd have to confront, and the hardest part, in my opinion, would be the mind split of realizing that what he thought was helping him, everything from reviving his career with Pulp Fiction to when he first got Welcome Back, Kotter, he would attribute and has all of that to Scientology. So could you imagine coming out and realizing that your son actually might still be alive, that what you thought was helping you, you're actually in deep shit now? The decompression that John and Tom would have to go through, I think it would be impossible at this stage of the game. Maybe John will slide out and maybe Tom will leave because something bad happens to him. But the price that they paid for, and I think a lot of people would say, I don't give a crap. I'll take it. I don't give a shit. I would do anything to have Tom's career. And I probably would have said that back in the day too. But I would not trade any Hollywood career or anything. The greatest gift I got is getting the fuck out of Scientology and being able to think for myself and realize the prison I was in. I wouldn't trade that for Tom and John. And yeah, that, what you just said, that's a horrible, horrible price to pay. And I wouldn't want to be them when I exit this world, because I always had this idea that right before you roll out, you can see everything instantly and then the lights go out. I wouldn't want to leave with the guilt of something I didn't even know I had done. Tom Cruise thinks that he doesn't have a problem with people making fun of him about Scientology. He knows Scientology's the shit. He looks down on them. But could you imagine getting that part, a big part of your life, totally wrong? And then you die like my dad did. So for me, it's like, I was paying that price. I was guaranteed a career, Kelly. I mean, I worked my ass off. I finally got enough parts on my resume where I signed with a really big mid-level agent, and I was going straight to producers. And I happened to wake up right when that happened in a single day. We can talk about that later. But yeah, I wouldn't trade any of that. I wouldn't want to be Tom Cruise. The best gift I got, man, is simply getting the fuck out of Scientology. You just really hit me with what you said, man, because I never really thought of that. But there's so many people that would still say, yeah, I would trade anything to be them. But I promise you, my friends, you wouldn't, because what they gave up and what they did was actually wrong. And they're going to probably go to their grave. They might not feel the guilt, but what they did on many, many levels was wrong, and they wronged a lot of people. And they won't, and they'll be none the wiser, which scares the shit out of me personally, to be in that kind of state of mind.
Yeah, and very sobering as well, what you've just said about, having to come to terms with this all someday, potentially.
Yeah.
I don't know how, I don't really make videos about Tom Cruise because honestly, I just cannot stand him. But
I understand.
yeah, I don't know in what world he doesn't know what's going on there. He has literal trafficked people doing up his house and serving him lunch. And I just don't know how he doesn't see that.
I think I can answer that. He doesn't see him as trafficked people. See, when I was, first of all, they do keep the celebrity clique. I was not nearly near his level, but I can tell you just from how I was insulated, I didn't see the Sea Org members were starving. I didn't see anything that went on behind the scenes. So what I thought is I looked up to the Sea Org members. I wanted to be like them. And they always put on a fake plastic smile to the public. So they're not showing you their woes and stuff. They will never confide in you, or they didn't me. So when they're around Tom Cruise's house, he's not seeing it as we have trafficked Sea Org members that are making 50 cents an hour, they freaking want to be there. It's like being in the army, the military. It's like being in the service. You're there to serve your country. So they're saluting Tom and Tom is saluting them. So it's a mutual, thing. I honestly don't think that he feels like, I think he wants to be a Sea Org member. In fact, at one point, he even supposedly said, I want to give up my acting career and sign the freaking contract. That's how dedicated he is to Scientology. No, for real.
They would never let him do that.
Well, they didn't. They said, no, you're much more valuable as an actor. But what I'm saying is, I didn't, and I don't think he or John Travolta sees, well, Tom Cruise, I don't think he sees those people around his house as trafficked people. I think he sees them as able people, like you said, no case on post. And they both have a mutual respect for each other. Only when I got out and I watched Going Clear and I learned, all the stuff that you've read and all of us exes read, Kelly, only then did my mind slowly shift. And it's still, because we talk quite a bit, and it's still, I tell you all the time, Kelly, it's still, what the hell were we a part of? Like, I'm still learning just more about that I didn't know about how evil it really is. So
it gets worse. It just always gets worse.
It's amazing. I thought I had it sussed years ago, but it keeps getting worse. Not least with the Masterson shit coming out and the pedophilia and all the stuff that Serge is covering, with the what he went through as kids. Like, I didn't really see, I mean, it was right in front of me, Kelly, but like I said, like you said, no case on post and the plastic smile. So it took me a long time to understand that they were even trafficked and that they didn't want to be there, that they were actually, starving, because I never saw that.
Yeah. And, I completely believe you on that. And I know that if you did, you would not have been okay with it. But you were not best friends with Mr. David Miscavige.
That's very true.
I wonder.
Great point.
I wonder about Tom Cruise and David Miscavige's relationship. Is there some kind of, again, like a controlling narcissistic thing going on there? Is there something, who, I don't even know which one of them would be the narcissist at this point.
Both of them, I think they both are. I think they feed off of each other.
They're fueling each other somehow. They think they're outdoing each other, maybe. Who knows? But I just don't know how they could be supposedly so close, and for Tom to not see, the sort of temperament, attitude, and actions of David. It just
That's
baffles
a great
me.
point. I'm sure he does, actually, now that you mention that. Of course he does, right? Maybe he keeps the beating of the staff and everything behind, but Tom's a controlling narcissist, in my opinion, too. So when you remember on the set during the COVID when he's like, God damn it, you better put your damn mask on. And he sounded just like Miscavige, right? So I think he looks up to Miscavige. Miscavige hates him, dude. I mean, he talks shit about him all the time in the staff meetings and stuff, but I don't think that Tom necessarily knows that. I think that David's jealous of Tom. And Tom looks up to David because he's the most important man in the world. He's the one leading Scientology. And Tom also feels like he's the most important person. So I think they just feed off of each other. I would guess, like I said, he keeps the real extreme beatings and everything probably out of Tom's purview. But when he does see him acting in a controlling manner, Tom looks up to that, man, because that's how he fucking acts. Now, people say that when they meet him in public, he's really nice because he's two-faced. I mean, people say he's the best person to work with. He's just so motivated. And I believe that he really is helpful. But to me, that's just the facade. The real Tom Cruise, the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, is like Miscavige, man. He's a control freak. Just ask his last 3 wives. So he looks up to David, I think, when he sees that aggressive behavior, because he does the same thing behind the scenes.
Yeah. You said something really interesting that I just want to pull you up on about Tom sounds exactly like David Miscavige when he's doing that COVID recording. Now, I don't know about you, but I personally have never heard a recording of David Miscavige like that. But I think that you've said that because what he's actually doing is using this, tone 40 command, which actually when Scientologists go into that, they all do sound the same, right? I've heard various recordings of it, and it's the same kind of dialogue. I don't know how to describe it. You might be able to do a better job than
You
me,
just did it.
but
You're
it's
absolutely right. Yeah, probably exactly like on the COVID stuff. But you're right. We all learn the same tone, 40 intention. And in the real world, it's called bullying someone and, to get what you want, right? But where it's reframed as if that's the way to get something done. But you make a good point. Yeah, we've never really heard Miscavige, have we? But that's what all Scientologists sound like. And since he's close, not only in stature to Miscavige, but close to him as a person, I imagine he takes on the beingness of him as well, and probably does sound pretty close to what Miscavige probably would sound like when he's going on a similar tirade as that COVID thing that Tom did, right?
yeah,
Probably.
100%. Yeah, I remember including a bunch of there's a lot of videos out there of people getting into arguments with Scientologists on the street, at protests, and they all do the same thing. It's that TR bull bait thing where they just go at you for one thing and they don't let up. And, now watching it, I find it absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
But, it's really not fun. And I think that's why I find it so interesting with the acting, because those TRs are so numbing, I think, where you're taking your reactions out of everything, which I would imagine would make it really difficult to act.
I know.
You know?
I know. That's a great point. Like, and it did, Kelly, because it was more like an intellectual way of, remember how we were talking earlier about the way we were taught was to be interesting, pull attention, like create something unique, try to stand out to get jobs, because we were pushed on how to actually become working actors, not just float around in an acting class. It was push, push, push about the business side. So that was pushed. And it definitely did make us more robotic. I was, again, thinking of my friend Jason Doring, where if you watch him on Veronica Mars, he has these moves. And I remember we practiced, about how to do things to really grab attention. And it would be very Scientology-esque, So it did make me more robotic, and it does shut your emotions down. That's why when we talked, Kelly, I told you that I never got to put anything on film post really Scientology, because that's when my heart opened up and my emotions actually came back. And for years, every week, multiple times a week, I would practice scenes and do scene work at my acting class. This is when I got out of the Scientology acting schools, and I went over to one called the Actor Studio, and that was a whole nother experience. It was way better. And yeah, it was so weird. I was like, I can't wait to put something down on film now, because I was just a robot before. I mean, if you end up playing any of the clips, that's mostly, me in Scientology, and it's embarrassing to watch. I think it passes because, I got the robot moves or whatever. But when I came out, I was looking forward to actually doing something where my emotions weren't shut down. It's a total paradox and a total contradiction. And I can even see sometimes in these Scientology actors, the Scientology programming and the shutting down of emotions. It's really weird.
I would say definitely don't be embarrassed by it. It's part of your journey as well as an actor. Do you think one day you might want to get in front of a camera again in a film sense? Not what we're doing here on YouTube, but a fictional moving motion picture.
What do you mean, like back in Hollywood and do some more stuff? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. A film, yeah.
I never wanted to stop. It's just that my life took a different direction. My eyes woke up not just to Scientology, but Hollywood. And I feel it's corrupt, and I would have a hard time going back and playing that game again. It was much easier to play it when I was oblivious. So I will always probably miss it. It's going away a little bit, because the last few years, rather than hiding behind a character, YouTube, which I never thought I would do, has been an interesting outlet, because all I was trying to do when I really got into acting is to express something through a character that I really wanted to say. So I don't have to hide behind a character. There is some, not performance, but there's some real satisfaction being able to just speak from the heart and not have to hide behind a character. I don't have to play the game of kissing a casting director's ass. I did like the process of the competition. I do feel like I could work again. I have enough connections where I could, get an agent or manager. I was actually planning on doing that before the pandemic hit, but these last 3 years really changed my path. It hurt for a long time. It hurts a little bit less because I've been trying to reconcile how do I go back to Hollywood knowing what I know now? And then also, it took years to get over the trauma. Right when I got my foot in the door, and I told you I signed with that, really good agent, a friend of mine dropped a book from the actor studio, from my acting class. He dropped a book off on my doorstep called Combating Cult Mind Control by Steve Hassan. It's a long story about how I came to read it, but that snapped me out of it in a single day. So I never wanted to not be an actor. It's just that I went through so much change from that day forward that I've just changed. So my thoughts about going back are divided. It really, like I said, Kelly, at the beginning of the interview, I always wanted to be an actor or I'm going to die. If I didn't have the YouTube outlet during the pandemic and we were all locked in our houses, I would have went crazy. But I just look at my life now as a journey. So I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow, let alone I could quit the YouTube thing tomorrow. I'm not tied to any of this and go back into acting. I don't know. I don't really even think anymore. Like in Scientology, I had my everything planned out. Now I just totally go with the flow, something I learned to do by the deprogramming process. So I don't know. I mean, who's to say? For right now, I'm satisfied doing what I'm doing, but there is a split in my heart, man, because I freaking I miss it and I wish not only Hollywood was something different. I wish the world we live in was different because there is a part of me that wishes, speaking facetiously, that I didn't have my eyes open from Scientology because I lost my family. I went through a real dark period, which you know all about from your experience. And I couldn't even go into the audition room I couldn't shut my brain off. It's hard to explain. And like I told you, that's all I would talk about with my agents. So it's been such a ride since that day happened when my life totally changed. I still feel like I'm trying to catch up. And I can't even think far enough ahead to know if I will end up doing that or not. Who the hell knows? But I still miss it to a certain degree.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to say that it's not a never again, or it's, something that you've closed yourself off to. And, you just mentioned about how your path has changed and you've ended up on this platform with all of you lovely lot who are watching.
It's great. I would never even met you and all these awesome people though, without.
Exactly. Let's talk a little bit about that. What brought you onto YouTube? The pandemic?
Yeah, Kelly, I was literally going crazy. I don't know what it was like in the UK when you were experiencing it, but it was a ghost town. It was really creepy and it reminded me of being back in Scientology. I was stuck in my house. It was so surreal. It's even surreal to me today that actually happened. I'm still getting over it. But I just got to be up my butt one day. I literally sitting on the couch. I'm not a social media person. I don't like YouTube. I really don't like any of this stuff. I've learned to tolerate it because it's a great platform where anybody that feels like they have something to say, they can get on and say it. It's kind of amazing. I don't like the censorship, so I feel boxed in a little bit on that. But that comes with Hollywood too, and it's kind of the world we live in. Anyways, I accept it. But literally, it was just a spontaneous thing. I had this dude poster in the back. I had no experience in anything except being in front of the camera. So I just used my crappy little cell phone and I just felt compelled to make this video. And Kelly, I'm sure doing YouTube, it's terrifying to put yourself out there. And there was no grand plan. It was just something that I didn't even know needed to come out. And there was such a great response. It was amazing. I couldn't get anybody to listen to me in the real world about my Scientology experience. But because people actually listened and I had people that really actually cared, I just got swept up in it. And I've actually really enjoyed it, as challenging and difficult as it's been. As you know, it's kind of hard to talk about this stuff all the time because it takes something out of you. But it's been very worth it and totally spontaneous.
Yeah. And the stuff you've done on your channel, I know you had a channel right at the pandemic that actually got booted off by YouTube. So I understand some of that. Rebellious Doug is coming out and going, I hate social media, I hate all of it, but I'm still here. I don't.
That just added, Jesus, Kelly. I mean, I've got up to like 55,000 subscribers and YouTube's just like, oh yeah, sorry. It's so, oh my God, it's been such a pain in the ass. That part is just part of it though. I'm just talking about the whole social media thing. I don't need the latest phone. I try to keep that thing away from me. I don't like that stuff. The only thing I like about YouTube is anybody can get on there. It's pretty amazing that we have the opportunity to do that. And you meet all these great people. I wouldn't be talking to you, the amount of support. You know what I'm talking about. It's quite
Yeah.
overwhelming. And before that, nobody wanted to listen to what I had to say about Scientology. It's been extremely healing.
Yeah. And I've loved your content that you've created as well. I know you've
Thank you. You too.
re-uploaded some of those. Thank you. Some of those videos that you had originally, the Bridge to Total Amnesia. That's one of my faves. It's a really cool series that I really enjoy that. And you do some amazing, very fascinating / slightly spooky interviews with your pal, or maybe not pal, HD Tudor.
I don't know him in real life.
To be a friend.
No, and I do know that, but we're not friends, Kelly. In the fact, the only time I talk to him is during the interviews. I don't condone what he does, and he's not my real life buddy, and we do not talk other than that. But I do. He's the only narcissist that, because of the relationship and the distance we have, and we're not enmeshed in each other, and he doesn't try to ensnare me. He's very open about why, that he uses me for whatever purpose. I get something out of him too. So that is really the only narcissist that I would allow in my life, consciously, because of the value that he provides. But I wouldn't not. I hate to use the word friend because it might give the wrong connotation. But he's been really. I mean, he has a huge following, and I just left him a comment. He was the first guy I wanted to interview because of the effect that he had on understanding L. Ron Hubbard and my family and narcissists, right? And when I left that comment, he responded back right away. We've done 14 interviews. He's always on time. If he's never stood me up. If he has to change, he lets me know. He's been the easiest content creator I've ever worked with. And it's amazing because you would think he'd be the worst as a narcissist, flaky, trying to ensnare me and all that. But I do consider him a friend. But I hope people understand that I'm not encouraging anyone to have narcissists in your life at all. This is a unique situation. I interviewed the guy, but I do appreciate him and value him.
Yeah, I think that's the thing though, isn't it? You would consider him a friend. He just doesn't consider anyone else a friend,
Exactly
perhaps. But some of those interviews are really, really great. And you have a really great way of communicating with him, and your content about Scientology is amazing. Talk to me a little bit about Dazed but Not Confused. There's a song, there's a movie. Talk to me about it.
You're the first one to actually ask that yet again. I mean, you've been asking really good questions. Well, it's from the song, yes, from Led Zeppelin, but mostly from one of my favorite movies, which is Dazed and Confused, which stars, of course, the Scientologist we were talking about earlier, Marissa Ribisi, the red-haired girl that gets hit on by Matthew McConaughey. And it's just a classic movie, and you need to see it. I can't believe you haven't seen it yet. But I think most of the listeners will have probably seen it. So it's based on that. It has the hippie vibe where I feel like a hippie at heart. It's probably how I got trapped into Scientology. I'm a dreamer and shit. And I always felt like I was born in the wrong generation. The 60s would be my vibe. But mostly I picked it because Dazed but Not Confused. I feel like I have a permanent wound in me because of growing up in Scientology. But that's okay, because that, I think, opened me up to, I do know that I can never heal it, and I'm not trying to actually do that anymore. So I feel a little bit like an alien to this world, and I probably always will. There's a subconscious sadness going on all the time in the background of my life. There just is, from what the world could be versus what it is. There's a wound there that I think also took me into art. I don't think you have to be wounded, but I accept it, is what I'm saying. I'll be integrating it for the rest of my life. So I'm dazed. I'm permanently fucked up in the head a little bit, but I'm not confused as to what happened to me in Scientology, the world that I live in, and I can see through bullshit because of the experience. I have zero tolerance for bullshit. That's the one thing that I can't stand. That's the one gift I got out of the great wound. So that's where it's come. I'm fucked up. I'm dazed, but my eyes are wide open and I can see what's going on. I hope.
Yeah, and I think that sums up what you do on your channel perfectly, actually, doesn't it? If anybody is out there and would like to go and watch Dazed But Not Confused, aka Doug Kramer, aka Absolute Bloody Legend, you can click somewhere on the screen. No, you didn't. You can click somewhere on the screen right now. We are going to end off this video. But thank you so much for talking to me today, Doug. I appreciate it so much. Appreciate your time.
Kelly, you are such a sweetheart, man. Thank you so much for inviting me on and just chatting with me. I just adore you.
Well, thanks. All right, we are out, people. I will see you all in the next one. Laters. Give a little wave if you want.
Would you call me on the midnight train? Would you come over when nothing's right? Would you hold me tight in the rain?